Hello and welcome to another episode of Love It or Shove It. It's me, Irina Links, with my co-host Bruno Gill, and we have our amazing guest, Tobi Staples. Tobi, just shout out a few words about yourself because I'm sure not everybody knows about you. What are you doing in this beautiful world?
Well, I'm an earth angel, an empowered empath, a light worker, spiritual weight shower, author, and I love to disrupt brain patterns and belief systems. I like to call myself a disruptor.
I love it. Short and sweet, right?
Yeah.
And today we are going to dive into an interesting topic because Tobi came up with that topic, and it's embracing your inner child. I'm sure a lot of people are not even aware that, like once they grow up, they still have this little girl or little boy inside of them, and they never even actually pay attention to that inner child. Tobi, why is that so important?
Well, because our soul knows no age, it knows all ages. So you may be stuck in your belief system of how old you are and what age you're operating from, but genuinely your soul is running from all ages and all experiences. So it's really important to nurture any part of you that needs the nurturing. And half the time our inner child gets stuck where it was left unnurtured. And it's very important as adults to go back there and to nurture your inner child to make sure you thrive in life.
Yeah, it's very important. And Bruno, what do you think about your inner child? Like when was the time when you really understood that you have one and you have to care and nurture?
Was when I still had some, I wouldn't say attachments, but some desires in doing the things I would do as a child. And maybe like not like the actual physical activities, but embodying that feeling, right? Because it's all about the play. And the play is nice. It's when we're playing, we're happy, right? We want to do things that makes us happy. Now, you don't want to go back to the ignorance that a child has. You don't want to go back to how naive a child is. You can't, right? It's like you can't really you can't ignore, right? Just because you miss it, that doesn't mean you can ignore everything that you went through. You can ignore every lesson that you had, every pain that you had, right? Because it was seen, because it was hurt, because you tasted it, your soul tasted it, your soul felt it, right? But at the end of the day, right, it's always good to have the balance, right? Right, because too much of one thing doesn't help, whether if it is in being in your inner child or being an adult, right? So you gotta balance it, right? Right. You gotta find time for fun and play, and you gotta find time for serious and work, right? For serious and getting down to business. And so, I've came to a point where it's like I had to. In a lot of times, we feel the pressure of, I'm not supposed to behave like this anymore. I'm not that age anymore. No, what am I doing? But the reality is that it's not about so much about like age like just being a number. It's more about like you will always be a child. It's like you'll always be it. You'll always have the memories, and you don't have to give that up, right? It's like you can always go back and do the same thing again and again and again and again, knowing, right, that even if you're on a different path, you're not a child anymore, you can still do things that make you feel like a child, right? And you're honoring your older version as well, right? It doesn't matter how bad or not your child version or your teenage version was. The reality is that today you're here because those versions of yourself got you through what you were going through, good and bad, right? And this version right now that you are, right, is going to take you through to your next one, right? So, simple. If a lot of times a lot of people are like, oh, if I could go back, like I would do this different, and I'm like, no, you would not. You're saying that you would based on what you know now. But if you'd go back to a time where you didn't know anything, and so you'd make the same mistakes, right? Simple. Um, and so, but that's something different, right? And like embracing your inner child is a pure experience because you're embracing and you're behaving with all the purity, right, that you had as a kid, right? It's a moment where like you forget everything, right? Where you just focus on what you have to focus on, right? With me, because I have kind of like mastered it a lot, it's like it's like I'm always acting like a child, basically. And it's like I'm 23, 24, I'm 23. I was 22. And I'm always acting like a child. And I will act like a child when I'm 25, and I will act like a child when I'm 30, and when I'm 40, and then when I'm 50, because the reality is that like life already has so much pressure, right? We deserve to have that fun, and we deserve to have that fun like a child would have, right? Simple, period, right? And yeah, embracing your inner child is just very important, basically.
Toby, what was your first experience when you actually connected that you have that inner child that you have to take care of?
Well, when I realized, when I was working towards my spiritual awakening and mastering my energy, what my blockages were, and my final blockage towards my annihilation of the ego was the disconnect from my purest state, which was the minute that my childlike state had been infused with trauma. Simple. It wasn't the environment that I grew up in. It was the initial the traumatic experience that disconnected me. So while I was doing self-mastery and while I was fueling my Kundalini awakening, I realized, only because my soul showed me, where I was initially traumatized and where I lost touch from my inner child. And that was at the first experience of trauma. So that's how I knew how important it was, because I never could understand, why is it that I all of a sudden, after living so many years, 45 years of my life, never again reliving that memory, had it been pushed to the forefront of my brain. But that was the initial wound. And that is the initial where my inner child went into survival mode, because it had not been healed and nurtured or repaired of that trauma. So it was through experiencing my spiritual awakening and pushing myself past that initial disconnect, because it was the last hurdle for me to break through and the last bridge for me to bind in order for me to annihilate the ego and allow my Kundalini to literally embody my whole being. So it's why it's so important for the inner child is because, yes, people may have a misconception that your inner child is just this curious exploration state of discovery and love. But no, it's not. If your inner child has been traumatized, pain's been inflicted, suffering was induced, you were shamed, you were blamed, you were guilted, you were denied any resolve, you were not nurtured properly, you were embedded with programming and belief systems. So your inner child, what one may think, oh, my inner child is just so happy and following its heart. No, not if it was disconnected from it. This is why it's so important to go in and figure yourself out and figure out what's stored in front of that inner child and what's smothering it. Because the minute you start unpacking all of those emotions that are smothering your inner child from actually allowing your inner child to fully embody you, because it's the state we're born in. We're born in this unconditional state of unconditional love, infinite power, boundless, like we have no limits. We can make everything and anything possible. But the minute we disconnect from our inner child, Well, there goes the power of every possibility also. So this is why it's so important to go back and embrace that inner child and give your inner child the nurturing that it needed at that time, no matter how far it's been since. Because in doing that for me, oh wow, it was a life-changing experience. I was able to annihilate the ego and break through to become fully embodied by universal love. So that's how important it is.
You know what? Thanks so much for sharing. My first experience with the inner child was when I lost my job during pandemic, and that was the time when I was discovering myself, like what exactly am I gonna do, right? And then I decided to explore the past life regression, and I registered for this course, and it was more like not hypnosis but therapy, right? Like they keep you fully awake, so they don't put you in the hypnotic state. But it was very interesting for me because I've never been using any therapist through my life. Like I was so like out of tune about the meditation, right? Like I didn't know what this world is all about, because again, I was fortunate enough, I didn't have any trauma being raised. Like I had a very good childhood upbringing, so I was more exposed to the sunny side of the world, right? So for me, I wasn't connected on that level. So when I came to these like they were virtual classes, right? And I remember that the first time they wanted us like to connect to our inner child, like like they were saying, okay, remember when you're 3 years old, like just picture that scene. What do you see? What do you see your mom doing? And it was interesting because like I'm trying to remember the things, right, from where I was so small. And then a lot of times it was like putting me in doubt. Is it something that I remember, or I'm just making it up, right? And it was interesting to notice because they said just trust. Whatever is happening, it means that this is the reality, although it feels like we don't remember, right? Because we keep, like our memory from other lives, right? As long as we are willing to really tap into that. So I recall when first they put us into our childhood, and then they were putting us, like beyond that, right? Like now let's talk about your, little girl that you have inside. And I was like, wait, do I have that girl inside, right? Although I was always about fun and because a lot of times with the society it's like, oh, okay, we have to behave a certain way, like who is the one to put this like a constriction on us, right? But we're just watching everybody around us, and obviously it impacts us, right? But I remember when it came to my laugh, like I have this like loud laugh that my mom used to tell me all the time, oh, you have to like really watch yourself when you're laughing, it's not appropriate. And I remember I was like, fuck that, like I didn't say in that way, but I was like, so what? This is me. I can't laugh any other way. If this is not, like somebody likes, be it, right? Because otherwise I wouldn't enjoy if I'm, like laughing. This is something that, like actually connects to my inner child, right? Because that's exactly how I express myself, no matter how old I am, right? But that was like my first experience. And then I started to think more and more about it, like how important it is to actually talk to our inner child, be loving, right? Give lots of love, give lots of care, like really paying attention what our inner child wants. And my other question is like, why is this so important? Let's go back to Bruno. Why is this so important to listen to our and connect to our inner child?
Because, for example, like Tobi was saying, right? It's like you have the good and you have the bad, right? And so it's like when you're a child, it's like the good is very good, right? But the bad is very bad as well, right? And so if you're bringing up your inner child, you're bringing up traumas and fears and angers and frustrations and everything, right? You gotta heal that, right? It's like you have to cure that. So there's two options here, in my belief, right? Number one, you're bringing up the bad and you're fixing it, right? And then number two, you're bringing up the good and you're healing it, right? So there's two options here, in my belief, right? Number one, you're bringing up the bad and you're fixing it, right? And then number two, you're bringing up the bad and you're fixing it, right? And And now it's like you're not thinking as a child anymore. You're bringing up the feelings of a child in the mind of an adult, right? So logically you're an adult, right, which is good, right, which is a very good thing, right? And emotionally you're a child, right, because you brought those feelings up, right? So now you're in that state of being, right, which is a good thing, right? Because now you logically think how you're going to emotionally heal yourself, right? Or option 2, right?
Can I jump in there just for a further explanation of what you're exactly saying, Bruno?
Yes.
Okay, you see what you were mentioning about how you have to address your inner child, and depending on its state, then you'll know how it has to be nurtured. But unless you are a lot, like, not for you, but the audience, guys, unless you cannot distract yourself and avoid what your inner child is truly feeling or deny it. If your inner child is feeling fucking frustrated, you better address that and look a little deeper and ask your inner child, why is it in a state of frustration, so you can understand how to fix it. Sorry, keep going, Bruno.
No, you're absolutely correct. And yeah, like that's option 1, right? And then option 2 is like, look, you just really have to feel a little bit more childish. But the problem is that nowadays, childish is like when you say, oh, you're childish, like it has like a negative connotation, right? But childish can also mean, look, like I need to declutter my mind, I need to declutter my anxiety, I need to declutter everything. So I need to embody a little bit more of my younger self, because my younger self did not know what this was until life fucked me in the ass, right? So, it's like, yeah, and it's important. It's very important, right? Because embodying that feeling, right? Look, like, there's a thing called acting on your highest excitement, right? And when Tobi was like, when you start acting like your inner child, when your inner child does come out, you start attracting every fucking thing like that you can for yourself, is because of the excitement that and the desire that comes after you, right? Simple. And there's that excitement, right? Is that like, that will, that immortal, like that, like divinely unbreakable will, that fire that is rising in here, right? Right? A lot of that comes from dreaming like a child, right? Having the desire like a child would, right? Visualizing, imagining, looking themselves in the mirror and being like, I am this player and stuff, and they really believe it. It's like when a child says those things in front of the mirror, they really, really believe it, right? And then life fucks you in the ass, and you're like, oh wait, like, is this how it actually is? Oh, maybe not. Oh, maybe I'll just be in the corner here of it, and I'll just, hide my face of it, and hopefully nobody sees me. It's like no, it's like you gotta like one of the biggest lies that people feed each other, and that grown-ups that are completely unsuccessful, their job is successful, but they're completely miserable, right? Is that they say to kids like, look, I know that it's very good to dream, it's very good to this and that, but you gotta come back to reality, right? And sure, fine, sometimes you do have to come back to reality, but that does not mean that you have to give up your dreams and what you're doing, and anything is possible. Those people just don't believe that, because their life has not become all that is possible, has become all the same, right? So what those people are doing is that no matter how professional or not they are, they're really just projecting the way they feel into somebody that has nothing to do with it. But ultimately, they're going to make those people believe that because they're older, because their job is successful, because their parents will probably be like, yeah, but you should listen to him anyways. It's like, no, even less, right? And so, yeah, right. It's like, never stop dreaming like a kid would. And when like you really want something, like believe it like you're a kid. Feel it like a kid. Like feel the excitement, like literally visualize yourself, like imagine yourself like a kid would, right? Like that is literally the trick. Like that's literally the trick. Yeah.
Awesome. Tobi, what do you have to say? Why is it important?
Because everything's governed from our inner child state. Everything in your life. everything.
Heart
So
center.
if you've been lucky to not experience heavy trauma, well, then you're very lucky, because the rest of the world has. And more people than not, their inner children, their inner child, is still stuck in a state of feeling abused, feeling neglected, feeling rejected, feeling unloved, feeling frustrated, feeling out of control, still in a state of tantrum. Listen, I know grown men in their 60s that still are bucking, because so is their inner child. It's direct correlation. If you have an inner child that is locked inside of you, that is neglected and fearful and shy and put in a corner, well, that's how you are governing your life. There's direct correlation. So even with me, now that I've embraced and healed my inner child, how did I do that? I had to bring her out of hiding. I had to go back to several moments in my life and pick her up off the floor where people left her to die. Okay? I had to go and pull her out of traumatized states after being raped, molested, beaten. Listen, what I had to go and heal my inner child from and say, hey, look who I've become today. Number one, you're safe. I will protect you at all costs. Nobody will ever do that shit to you again. You're free to come out, primarily. It's okay to talk to me, because yes, your mother told you to shut up all your life and that your voice was too loud and to go find something to do. And every time my inner child wanted to speak, it was being silenced by every single thing around me. You know how hard it was for me to heal the inner child to the point where I could come out and speak? After, for all my life, even up until weeks ago, I'm being told, shh, your voice, calm down, lower your voice. You have no idea how important it is to go and heal your inner child from everything that everybody else inflicted on you. And yes, it's okay, but you must go and get your inner child out of those states and show the love and nurturing. Literally, I had to tell my own inner child, you're okay. I've got you now. You're not in anybody else's hands but mine. You're safe in my hands. Yes, you can express what you need to tell me. Yes, you can tell me your deepest, darkest secrets. What do you want? What do you dream for? Little girl who's been stuck in hiding? Literally, it was a life-changing experience for me. That's why I'm intentionally getting younger by the day, because my inner child wants that. It wants to play. My life has been way too hard. That now it's time to play. That's why it's so important.
I love it. I love it. You know what? Let's just connect now. That like our inner child. How is it impacting the relationship with others? Like, because we are talking more like, if we attend to our inner child, obviously we learn how to love ourselves deeper, stronger, right? No matter what. How is this actually affecting our relationships? And let's talk about romantic relationships. Bruno.
Well, with me, like, it impacts my life quite well, actually, because for example, the best way to get somebody's trust is really acting out of your inner child, because childs are vulnerable. And so when you act out of your inner child, you act on your vulnerability, you act out of that. And so when people see that, they love it, and they see you as a trustworthy person, because number one, there's not many people, not the majority, who's doing that anyways. And then number two, is pure and it's trustworthy, right? And so it brings out a magnetic it brings out a magnetic frequency. Look, Toby, I had the same problem a lot of times. It's like don't make me go through things that are gonna bring shame. Don't make me go through things like shameful things. People looking at us and stuff. Control yourself, or don't say this, don't say that, don't touch this, don't touch that, don't touch this, and don't touch that. I even understand, right? But there was many things. There was times where like I was just super 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 excited, and I was like, oh my god, like this and that, no 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 no, and people were like, oh, just don't bug me with that, don't bug me with that, and I grew up being like, look, the things that I like don't really matter, right?
But
It's
how
sort of
did
like-
how did that affect your relationships throughout your life?
it's like I became a people pleaser,
There we go.
right? I became a people pleaser.
You hear
Right, I
that?
became a people pleaser. Right, I became a people pleaser when I was a kid, because I was like, okay, if I cannot approach people directly saying how amazing I am because I did this, then I'm gonna have to please your ass. So you can now find me amazing for that, because what I really value and want doesn't fucking matter for anything. Right, that's what happened to me. Right, and then I kind of grew up and whatever, and I told everybody to go fuck themselves. Right, because the reality is that I matter, and I matter more than any motherfucker. So I don't care. And so that's it, right? Like, simple, period. And so I had to do that to really awaken myself, because only when I started choosing myself as a priority was when I really kind of starting to become I became more self-accountable for my stuff, right? I became, I became more self-accountable. I started to prioritize myself a little bit more. I started to value myself a bit more. And the reality of the situation is, the more I worked on myself, the more I started loving myself. I had no love for myself because I put no work on myself, right? You can't love something. You cannot love something you're not putting in the work to love, and you cannot love something you didn't love in the beginning, right? Unless something happened, right? So I didn't love myself, and then something happened. And what happened was the mindset shift, right? Was that you can please everybody, but not everybody can fulfill you anyways, right? Was like, look, it's not about how much you can give to others, it's how much you can give to yourself, so then you can give others. But then when you give a lot to yourself, you start to understand that you don't need other people to give to yourself. You need to give to yourself, so then you can give to the people that matter, right? Because now you don't need to give everything to other people. And that's what my inner child had to understand, right? And so my inner child didn't understand that before, now it does, right? And so even when I embody that, right? Even when I embody that, look, I'll give you another example. I had an unfortunate situation some months ago, throughout throughout some time, right? Where I was in the gym and I had people making fun of me and stuff. And people knew, around people knew what was happening. You could see people's faces, you could feel attention in the air. And I was bullied as a child for 6 years in a row. And I remember back then, many years ago, right? I was like, well, I told myself, I was like, I'm never gonna let anybody bully me. I don't care if I'm 20, if I'm 50, if I'm 40, if I'm 15, I don't care. Right now I'm 23, I was 22 months ago, right? But the reality is that I defended myself. I did. And I talked back. And I showed no fear. Right? And so I kept that promise that I made to my inner child. Right? And I kept that promise. And then when I got home, I had a convo with myself, and I said I kept that promise. And if that same thing happens again, I will continue keeping that promise. Because the reality is that we have to show ourselves that we are not the same person anymore, right? And it's only embodying that feeling and really showing it to ourselves, right? That really it really makes a difference, right? It's the pattern recognition and the pattern change, right? Is wishing that things are easier, and then when things become easier, never forget how things were, because when things were the way they were, you were a child. Now you're not. Now you're an adult, right? What you wanted became true. You actually defended yourself, and you kept the promise you made to yourself 15, 20 years ago. That's impossible. 20 years ago, it's impossible. But 15 years ago.
I have to jump in here though, Bruno, because I need you to be unaware. I need you to be aware of something that you are currently unaware of. If you are still triggered,
oh no,
then you are not healed.
No, I'm not triggered anymore. No. That was months
ago. What
I'm
saying is, you were just triggered. You just told a story about being triggered in the gym weeks ago or months ago.
Months ago, no. I'm telling the story now, but that was months ago.
I get it, but I want the audience to understand that if they're triggered, They're not healed. So if there's anything triggering you in your life, your inner child is unhealed, or your inner teenager, or your inner young adult, or because you're going to have to work through all of that before you get to your inner child. But what he's talking about, being in the gym and being triggered by an event that he had to live in his past and decided to stand up and defend himself to gain his balance, I guess.
Yeah, it was about keeping the promise. Like,
okay, so keeping the promise.
Yes.
But people, if you are triggered by anything
You,
at all that induces a response or a reaction, you are unhealed.
absolutely no. That I agree.
Okay, I need the audience to realize that, because
No,
people
yeah,
walk
absolutely.
around triggered by everything, even the wind,
Yeah.
and they don't realize that it's the state of their suffering and scarring and pain, and that they're walking around with, and all the shame, guilt, denial, and all of that shit they're storing that actually is distorting them.
Exactly.
And they're being
it's
triggered by
attracting more.
everything and not understanding it.
Yeah.
So Bruno's example is perfect for you guys to understand that even with all the inner work, the mentoring, the coaching, all of his evolution, his growth, he still had something that was triggered from his inner child trauma. Okay, this is where I want you all to make the correlation and how important it is to, like he said, go back and fulfill that promise to your inner child. It's going to build trust. It's crazy, but how Irina asked, how does it affect your relationships? Guess what? If you don't have a whole healed relationship with your own being, you cannot have one with another. And I'm a firm believer of that. So yeah, it affects all your relationships throughout your whole life until you address it, no matter what.
Yes,
Bruno,
I just wanted to say that, it's very important to know our inner child and nurture and love, right? Because when we can give that full love to our inner child, then we can understand other people and we can actually connect and give the love to others.
And that's amazing, Bruno. I just have to jump in and I got to give you a high five. First of all, happy birthday again.
Yeah, it was Bruno's birthday yesterday. Yes.
Second of all, I am so impressed with all of your inner work and your tackling of everything of your own self-mastery. It is absolutely amazing to watch the evolution and growth. And I will say that out here proudly, because you've jumped enormous hurdles. You've tackled enormous healing. You've put it into action. You haven't just listened and whatever. No, you've applied it. And you've felt the massive growth. And now you're able to do even greater, bigger things. And I just love it. It amplifies everything in your life when you tackle it. So I just got to applaud you, man. Happy birthday and have a great fresh start to a new year, Bruno. Shit. Woo!
Thank you, Tobi. Thank you.
I hope you unleash that inner child for the best year ever.
Absolutely. Always.
So, Irina, what do you think about how inner child affects your relationships? Because you asked us, but you never put your 2 cents. I'd like to hear what you have to say.
No, that's what I mean. Like, once we heal ourselves, like once we understand our inner child, then we can understand others and we can be ready for the relationship, right? Because through our self-work, we know that we are more, we know how to accept people, right? We know how to love, we know how to get, nurturing or caring for another person, right? Obviously, we also know about the boundaries, which is very important, right? To always have the healthy boundaries and just express ourselves to the fullest, because you know what, the connection with the inner child and actually with the child itself, right? Child is always ready to express themselves, right? They are not like thinking about, okay, if I say that, I might, really hurt somebody or offend somebody. I'm just gonna speak the truth, right? And I believe it's so important for all of us to speak the truth, no matter what age we are, right? But we are just learning how to do it in a way not to hurt somebody, but using the appropriate language for the person to understand.
But I'd like to also, guys, you're not responsible for how anybody receives your wisdom,
Well,
but you do have a responsibility to share it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And yes, you don't have to think about, and your inner child has so much to do with that, Irina? Stops us from speaking truthfully, stops us from loving wholeheartedly, stops us from having all of the magic
Yes.
that our fingertips do have.
Mm-hmm.
Literally. And it's great that you guys brought it up, because guys, don't you remember when you were acting out being a pirate or a superhero as a child, or going on adventures, or and that was the only thing that existed, was that moment of full discovery, exploration, joy. And it didn't matter what happened in your day. It didn't matter if you fell and bumped your knee. 5 minutes later, you wouldn't be thinking about it. You'd be on to exploring the next discovery. That's why it's so important to make sure your inner child is feeling the same way, and allow that to surface every day, to come out and play. Why wouldn't you? You're supposed to explore. It doesn't matter how old you are. You're supposed to love life and everything in it. Well, if you're not loving you and your inner child, how is that possible? It's not. It's not. So guys, embrace you and love you and discover and explore and learn. Like that show, Dora the Explorer? Well, that's how every day is supposed to be for you.
Yes, absolutely. Exploration. You know what, Tobi, it brings my, childhood memory. When I was like maybe in the 4th or 5th grade, I used to put on the, the record playing. We had the records that time. And I would use my jumping rope as the microphone. And I would be walking and just, dancing and singing. Like, look at this. Now I'm actually, performing on the stage.
You are? Well,
right here. Yes.
Right here?
Aren't we all? Yes.
Oh,
Aren't we
I didn't
all?
look at it like that. I thought, okay, do I get to come and see you literally live on stage, like in a performance?
No, I mean, even we are speaking and we are performing, right? We are on the stage. It's a virtual stage, but it is a stage.
See, I don't.
And more to come.
I don't look at it like that. I look at it like I'm hanging out with 2 of my friends that are in different parts of the world, and we're having such an amazing time. And literally, there may be viewers and there may not be, and even on replay, you guys are non-existent to me until you are. Sorry, these guys are here with me, and I love them, and I love being here with them. So,
yes, and we love you as well. So let's go back to embracing your inner child. How else can we embrace? What would be good tools, Tobi?
Sit with yourself. You need to sit with yourself and don't deny how you feel. How do you genuinely feel? If you sit in silence, in the void of your being, literally no distractions, no TV, no phone, no internet, nothing. You sit in the silence of your being and hush your mind, well, you're going to feel what you have stored in your inner child and how it's feeling actually. Why you don't feel it today is because you're distracted from it, believing everything else is of a higher priority than your own being. When you take the time to prioritize you, you are going to feel what's happening. And that's the only way too, is you've got to explore and discover what's going on inside of you. The only way to do that is to sit with yourself, alone.
You know what comes to my mind? It's like, being playful, right? Like, just, go outside, when I play with my son's soccer, all that inner child pops up, right? Because you're laughing, you're having a good time, and we can do it, even for ourselves, right? I remember each time, when I swim in the ocean and I'm just enjoying myself, I actually have these beautiful emotions as the child, right? I'm so happy that there is the sun shining. I'm so happy that I'm just swimming, enjoying the experience. So it's all about just connecting, right? And doing some kind of activities, or like playing with my son hide and seek in the house, right? And it's like, it's literally because there is no place already that we didn't discover, right, to actually hide. And sometimes we just make it on purpose, like like I see or he sees where I'm hiding, but we're just passing by and just like pretending like we do not see and just keep looking, right? Just to extend that moment of like when we actually realize, oh my God, like come out, I found you where you are, right? It's all about just playing, because we always want, our inner child is always about adventure, about the exploration, about the joy and fun, because we always want to connect to that energy, right? Because then life becomes more easy and more enjoyable.
Yes, you're right. But also, too, I'm grateful to hear that, because that shows and proves that you do not have a wounded inner child. But the majority and most of the population cannot engage in play the way that you do, because their inner child is wounded and still suffering. And that's how you can actually differentiate between the two. Somebody who can actually engage in play and play heartfully, and somebody who can't. Somebody who cannot engage heartfully in youthful play is a direct correlation to their wounded inner child, because if you have a wounded inner child, well, the last thing you want to do is play, explore, or discover, because that inner child is traumatized, and it will stop you from participating in life. Really. And that's why it's so important for you guys, the audience, to know the difference. You see, it's a perfect example. Irina did not have a traumatized upbringing. She did not have wounded inner child, per se, limitations and restrictions induced on her. So then, yes, she can be full of play, discovery with her own children. Whereas you have somebody like me who was wounded, traumatized, hurt, abused, and totally, let's just say, where I had to do the work that I am only now, having granddaughters, able to engage in heartful play and enjoy it. See, there's the two scales of the spectrum. This is why it's so important to figure out where you lie in between me and Irina's situation for you guys. It's an example for you guys to look at. Have you been one that breezed through life without trauma, and you can engage in play and holidays and enjoy and get the most out of it? Or are you literally removed from the participation of your own life? Do you participate in your own life? That'll tell you whether your inner child's wounded or not. If you don't have the up and go and the joy to play and the discovery and wanting to learn, you're running with a wounded inner child. Well, you better go heal and nurture that child, because your life depends on it. Gotta say it like that, And if you need help, look, all kinds of wonderful people here to help you. So get on that too.
Absolutely. And I love your invitation, because a lot of times people are watching and they are like, well, I don't even know where to start. It's it's still complicated for me. I don't understand exactly what does it mean, right? So there are links for us. Just connect with us, and we are here to help you, because I keep reminding that we were never meant to do it alone. No. We are here to help each other. We are here to grow together and evolve. And that's exactly, as long as we are breathing, we are here to grow and expand and become the best versions of ourselves.
Definitely. I'm so grateful that I was here with you guys today. Bruno, are you going to throw something in before this episode wraps up, or what?
Yes.
Sitting there.
Very sorry.
Jump in here. Irina and I have been with the gift of the gab. Are you going to throw something in here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm listening, and I'm like, I'm just, I'm observing and I'm listening, and I like it though. But yeah, it's true though. It's like, especially like I feel like for parents, it's like it's very important for them to, because for example, like parents who are not in touch with their inner child will make their child, um, yeah, like really sad, really empty, really, like what's wrong with me? Why doesn't my father or mother like? Why don't they care about what I do? And obviously they care, right? But at some point, they just, it's their nature. I mean, okay, I'm gonna reword that. It's not their nature, right? It's not their essence, but it's the nature of their traumas coming up to the surface because they don't know anything else, right? Um, and so when they had the time to relearn, they didn't. Now they have to relearn in the action, right? While raising the person, the kid, right? Um, and yeah, it's very important for parents to really know that. But I mean, back then, right? Back then on my thing, and especially on yours, right? There was nobody really teaching that, right? Like nobody knew anything about that. Like this thing about like embracing your inner child and stuff. Like this is all like new stuff. This is all stuff that people didn't even know it existed, right? Like this is all early type of content, right? Like this, like even 10, 20 years ago, like this wasn't a thing. There was nothing about this really. There was already like coaching, yes, sure. There was already like lots of stuff like that, but it's only like it was very like limited. Let's say it wasn't very like very mainstream. Right now,
It wasn't
coaching is
easily accessible to all because now there's the internet, but there was
right.
information readily available. It was just not accessible.
Right, exactly. But it's like people wouldn't go for coaches; they would go for psychologists or therapists or whatever, right? And even today, like for example, in Europe, like one of the reasons why like I target a lot of like the American audience is because like a lot of people, especially here in the UK, they don't go. A lot of people, not a lot of people, but some people, not a lot of people, but the problem is that it's always like more people than in America. It's like in America when it comes to coaching, they're way more open-minded, right, than in the UK, because in here they still, a lot of people still look for that academic, background, like, oh yeah, coaching, yeah, I don't know, I'd rather just go for psychology and therapy because that's so ingrained in me, right? But coaching and psychology and therapy is completely different, right? And when it comes to embracing your inner child, right, it's like a therapist and a psychology will not a psychologist or a therapist will not really tell you how to do it. They will just tell you on they will just try and understand on why you don't want to, and your traumas and your whatever that you suffer that are now repeating. But a psychologist and the therapist, they're supposed to make you go to the past. The coach is supposed to plan ahead. It's supposed to lay out a plan for you, or with you, in this case more with you, right, to really progress on that energy, progress on that frequency, right? Progress on that journey, on that path, right? And so this is why I target a lot of like American people as well, right? Because they're more open to coaching, they're more open to the idea of coaching, right? It's a way more mainstream thing, right? And if something doesn't go mainstream, where all the people are, then not a lot of people will know about it, right?
Bruno, I disagree with you. I think that therapists do approach that, healing. Like when we talk about coaches and therapists, right? Therapist goes into your past and they heal whatever traumas. So
Yes.
inner child is also something that they can actually, help you with. But coaches are different in terms that they are actually looking into the future, right?
Yeah, but that's what I said.
They say, you know what, I don't care about your child. I don't care about what happened, right? All I care is about like what you truly want, right, in this life, and that's exactly what they help you to achieve. But again, if you have the trauma, you do require the therapist, and you want to have the coach, right? You can have both. But usually coaches are the ones who, like, when people have certain goals and they want to go after them and they kind of do not know where to start because they do not believe in themselves, coaches are the ones to help them to like really hold that space for people and say, hey, even if you do not believe in yourself, I believe in you, and I know that you have that potential to do it. But I think that inner child is something that therapy can help you to connect with, and as well as psychology. What do you think, Toby?
Well, from what I've heard as feedback, I'm
You're echoing.
echoing, eh? I don't know why I'm echoing.
Oh, was it?
That's weird.
Who, me?
No, I am. I was echoing before, so it's probably because my amplified energy. But in my experience, there has been over 50 people, literally, I don't want to call any names, put them on the chopping block, but have all told me that they've all had interactions and therapy with resources that cost them a pretty penny to have, accredited services, but it was nothing like a month with me. So, I don't know.
But are we
Therapy.
talking about? Are we talking about inner child specifically, or
No,
you're
I'm
talking about?
psychologists, therapists, resources that are accredited? They never did anything for me. Not one of them. I had to own my own healing and my own self-mastery, because all of them made me believe I was crazy, that I was the problem, that I tried to be diagnosed with all kinds of shit, which is not true. I will say it proudly. Tried to medicate me to silence me, tried to put me on antidepressant pills when that was not the problem. Listen, you know what? These people operate on a falsified belief system of how the body really works, primarily. So it depends what you're looking for. If you want to
know what,
there,
I would disagree, because like some
for
people
me, it didn't work.
Yeah, it's okay, right? Because for some people it might not work, but for majority, yes. Because there is a difference between therapist and coach. There is a big difference. So when people are traumatized, a lot of healing has to be done, and a lot of times, these are the therapy work, because they do have, they go into past traumas. We as coaches do not do that. I mean, at least what I'm doing as a coach, I'm not going into traumas and past experience. I'm not there to heal them. I'm there to actually show them that there is another side of them that wants more life and wants more to experience. And if they are ready and willing, then we are actually, paving that path.
Yeah, but the question you would ask me is what I thought about psychologists and therapy, but it wasn't versus coaching. Me, I'm not a coach. I'm a spiritual way shower. I will illuminate the path to your highest potential of your soul being. That's all I do, by showing you how I did it myself. That's all. And no, there isn't a program.
Yeah, because you are the healer. You are the healer.
Yeah,
and it's different.
exactly.
It's different than therapy, and it's different than coach.
Exactly.
It's a different, a different aspect of,
Exactly.
human being. Yes.
Well,
So
I'll say something. Look, I agree with Toby, and I agree with both of you. By the way, right? You both touch on different points, and they were both right. By the way, right? 100%. But the reason why I, for instance, said, look, obviously therapy is different than coaching. I really repeated what I said, and that's fine. But at the same time, it's because therapists and psychologists, there's a difference between understanding why things happen the way they happen and embodying that state. And psychologists and therapists, they neither make you, neither they teach you, neither they help you embodying your inner child. Right? Because in their head, for a lot of them, it's but you're an adult. It's you have to logically
I don't agree with.
Actually, they do help with one thing.
They do help.
They do help with one thing, is you pulling it out of you. But you know why it doesn't help to most people is because they're not honest to the therapist or themselves. So they don't get the their rehabilitation that they need because of their own dishonesty towards themselves and to the therapist. A therapist can't sit there, or a psychologist, and ask you what's going on with you, and then you lie about it and expect to get results from them.
And they don't feel ready as well. But the reason why they lie is because they don't feel ready with it. Right?
Because it's been forced on them, because they don't take ownership for their own healing or whatever the case is.
Exactly.
But it's, you know what, that's where the changes could come. And you guys that are listening to all this, look, you've got all different options of different ways. If you are not sitting there today feeling right, this is what we can debate about this all we want. But the fundamental fact of it is, if anybody does need the help to correct what they're feeling, or they want to achieve their goals and can't figure out how, this is where I invite you guys to reach out to one of us. We can help you. No matter which three, it doesn't matter. You know what you need. So you know by visually seeing what people bring to you. Do not be shy and go get the help that you do need, because especially when it's readily available. So no matter what title is attached. Okay? Yeah, whether like she put it, look, whether through therapy or coaching, working with the inner child is a powerful approach to personal growth and healing. So by reconnecting with this part of ourselves, we can address past wounds, enhance creativity, and lead a more joyful and fulfilling life.
Yeah, I mean, fine, sure, but look, like, that's therapy and coaching, and this is not the definition for, this is not the same, this is one definition, right, for therapy and coaching. But here, this, right, by reconnecting with this part of ourselves, we can address past wounds. That's therapy, right? Enhance creativity and lead a more joyful and fulfilling life. It's coaching, right? Simple. Because there's
let's not debate on that. Let's just leave it up to, like, for people.
Well, you're blocking me out if you leave it up. You're cutting off my head. So either you rewrite it, put it smaller, or
the most important thing is the invitation for people to, like, really connect with their inner child, and like, start asking yourself important questions, because it's very important to actually get to know your inner child. And from then on, decide for yourself, do you want the help? And if you do, figure out what is the person that can help you. And that's all. It's up to everybody, right? To actually connect with somebody they want to connect with. On that note, thank you so much, everybody. And thanks for this, for bringing this beautiful topic, Tobi. It was, as always, a pleasure to see you with us, and for the audience to really ask yourself deeper questions. And if you have any comments to share, like, have you ever known about the inner child? And if yes, do you actually attend to that inner child? Because that inner child, the way you love them, the way you care for them, is going to be the reflection of who you are as the person and how you show up in this beautiful world. Anything else, Tobi, you want to add before we are closing?
You really need to, like Irina said, love and embrace that inner child, because there is so much power in that. And you should be loving your life and exploring and discovering just like a child does, and believing everything possible for yourself, exactly the way a child would. So I encourage you guys all to tap into your inner child and have some fun. Play. It's an adventure. Explore and discover, but love yourself, because the most important child you'll ever have to take care of in this world is your inner child. Big time.
Yeah. Just yourself. Bruno, any 2 words?
Yeah. Thank you, Tobi, for coming. And this was a good conversation, really. Yeah.
All right.
You guys.
See you on the next episode.